One trend on YouTube that I've seen quite a lot of is the what I spend in a week videos. Now, in case you aren't familiar, people usually vlog their week and then they just keep track of everything they spend money on. Now, I wasn't sure if people were sick of watching videos like that, so I ran a poll on Twitter, and it turns out a lot of you wanted to see what I spend in a week. So I thought I'd give it a try. Now, some people use this type of video as a time to flex on all the cool things they buy throughout a week. Some people use it as a flex to show how much they save. And I'm guessing mine will fall somewhere in between these two. Now, to be honest, I'm kind of nervous about doing this because I'm basically opening up my personal life to ridicule and criticism. But for the sake of transparency, I figured I would give it a shot. Now, personally, I enjoy saving money. When I can take 50 or 70% of a paycheck and just stuff it into savings, I'm pretty happy. But with this pandemic going around, I've succumbed to some conveniences like Postmates and grocery delivery. Now, obviously you pay a premium to get things delivered, but at this point in my life, there's one thing that I truly value most, and that is my time, since it is truly finite. I can always go out and try to earn more money, but I can't get back lost time. Now, I think most of the grocery stores here in LA restrict how many people can go in at one time. So the few times I've been, I've had to wait outside for a while before I can go in and shop. Also, we live downtown where our car is parked in a parking garage separate from our building, and we're still a little too far to walk to grocery stores. If you've seen my video on how I spend my time, you know that my days are usually pretty jam-packed. So for me, it's worth the extra cost of getting groceries delivered than spending an hour going to the store myself. Also, on that grocery note, my wife has a lot of life-threatening food allergies, and so we shop at Whole Foods mostly, where they have more specialty foods that she can eat. When we can, we like to shop at Trader Joe's or Sprouts, where it's a little cheaper than Whole Foods, but they don't really have locations that close to us, so normally we just end up at Whole Foods. And so it is more expensive, but it is what it is in this case. And I am 32, I don't really want to eat a lot of food with ingredients that I can't even pronounce the name of, so I'm okay with spending a little bit more to get higher quality food. Also, the way I have our business set up is all of our revenue comes in through our LLC. It's a separate entity apart from me and my wife. So I'll differentiate between personal expenses and business expenses as we go along. And lastly, since there is a pandemic going on, we do spend almost all of our time at home now. But even when there isn't a pandemic going on, we are homebodies, and apart from the occasional movie or going out meeting up with some friends, we are home most of the time or just around the downtown LA area. Okay, enough talking. Let's see what I spent this week. I started off the day by making coffee. I'm not super picky about my morning coffee, so I have a 2.5 pound of Starbucks coffee that I got at Costco for $20.89. I brew enough for 2 large mugfuls and splash in a little 2% milk, so this cost me roughly 45 cents. I eat the same thing for breakfast almost every single day. Together, this cost me $2.46, so along with my coffee, my breakfast comes to $2.91 total. So Sunday was actually a pretty chill day for me. I was all caught up on editing, so I watched a little football on YouTube TV. Now they just raised the price to $65 a month, so it is a pricier service. And if we were looking to cut costs, this would be one of the first things to go, since we don't watch a lot of live TV. But it does automatically record any shows that you want and stores it in the cloud, so it is kind of convenient if you like watching TV. For lunch, I made a sandwich. There are a few things I splurge on at the grocery store, and good bread is one of them. I got this half loaf of bread for $3, and I use about $1 worth of deli meat and 20 cents of cheese, and I top it off with Chipotle mayo and mustard for about 30 cents. But this bread was already moldy despite it just being a few days old, so I had it refunded and used a brioche bun that cost me 83 cents. I also ate a handful of late in July Cantina chips, which they're pretty expensive at $4 a bag, making my handful about 80 cents. And I usually have a can of sparkling water for lunch, but I just got off a round of antibiotics, so I had an Olipop, which is a low sugar soda with a prebiotic in it, so it's a bit of a splurge drink, but I got it on sale for $1.70. So altogether, my lunch was $4.83. Every afternoon, I have another coffee. I'm a huge fan of cold brew coffee, and despite what anyone says, cold brew coffee is not just taking regular coffee and throwing it in the fridge and then watering it down with ice. It's brewed cold, it's less acidic, and it tastes way better, in my opinion. In fact, the business I own was kind enough to buy this kegerator with nitro cold brew coffee on tap. Normally, a 5-gallon keg of this cold brew coffee costs me $150 and lasts me about 2 months. This makes the average cup of cold brew coffee in my home $2.30, which isn't really that much of a deal, but darn it if it just isn't convenient and freaking tasty. My business pays for it though, which makes it not sting so badly, but ever since the COVID shutdown, I haven't been getting kegs delivered, so I've just been buying cold brew from the grocery store. I got some cold brew concentrate on sale for $7.91, and it should last me 5 days, making a cup plus like a 5-cent splash of milk about $1.63. So if Graham Stephan wants to roast me, he can, but it is something that I enjoy and I'm okay with spending money on. For dinner, I made spaghetti with meat sauce, and this features another grocery store splurge, which is Rayo's marinara sauce. It costs $10 for a 32-ounce jar, which I know is insane, but it is really freaking good. So anytime it goes on sale, I stock up. I used a pound of ground turkey for $5.39 and a half a jar of sauce for $5, along with an onion and some garlic for another $1. I'm not gluten-free, but these brown rice noodles taste really good, and it's a little easier on my system, so I used half a pack of spaghetti for $2. And I had a cola-flavored LaCroix for 63 cents. Altogether, dinner was $14.02 for the two of us, but Rachel did have enough for leftovers the next day. We then watched a live Zoom show from one of our favorite musicians through his Patreon, which is $25 a month, but I'll add that in later. So my total for Sunday was $23.39. On Monday, I woke up early for the stock market. I made a pot of coffee and had the same breakfast as the day before for $2.91. It was a pretty uneventful day. I worked on a video for Mango Street and cleaned the house a little bit, and I had the same thing for lunch as the day before, but I swapped out the chips for bone broth soup. Bone broth has a bunch of healthy benefits, and thus it's pretty expensive. This bag of soup was $4.50. I also had one of my favorite sparkling drinks with lunch. It's called Wave Soda, and a pack of 6 costs $8, so it is quite expensive, so I don't buy it all the time. And this makes this can cost $1.33. So altogether, lunch was $8.16. And in the afternoon, I had another cold brew for $1.63. For dinner, I made some grown-up mac and cheese with green beans and onions, added a little sriracha. I guess I'm carb loading. It was freaking delicious. The green beans and onion were $1.10, and the mac and cheese was $2.29, plus a splash of milk, a little bit of butter, and a little sprinkle of cheese for 25 cents. I also had my go-to dinner drink of LaCroix soda for 63 cents. This brings dinner to $4.27, and my total spent on Monday, $16.97. Tuesday started the same as Monday. Coffee and breakfast for $2.91. I traded some stock options and worked on a Mango Street video, and then I ran some errands. I dropped off 4 rolls of film to get developed and scanned, and this was $72.27. And while that is a lot of money, at least it was a business expense. I then couldn't resist being so close to a Chipotle during lunchtime, so I ordered my usual, but I had a free entree reward, so it only cost me $2.46. Next, I went to a small grocery store looking for something for Rachel, but they didn't have it, so I just grabbed some bread, some cheese, and some milk for myself, and this cost me $14.25. I ended up driving 10 miles, and I get about 25.8 miles to the gallon, but I haven't filled up with gas since like July, so I'm guessing gas was probably around $3.20 per gallon then, and this makes the total cost of my trip $1.25 in gas. I ate Chipotle at home and had another Wave soda for $1.33, making lunch cost a total of $3.79. Then I had my afternoon cold brew for $1.63. For dinner, I made turkey burgers with onions and guacamole from 3 avocados. The meat was $5.39, the avocados were 90 cents a piece, and the onion was about $1. Including some seasonings, this meal was $9.59 for both me and my wife. Overall, I spent $108.15 on Tuesday. Wednesday was pretty much the same daily routine. Same breakfast, trading stocks, and working on a video for Mango Street. For lunch, I made a sandwich from the bread I bought the day before, and I tossed it in my panini maker. It's also scientifically proven that sandwiches taste better when cut diagonally.
I heard the jury's still out on science.
And I added a few chips, and a few more. I had a cold brew with lunch, bringing the total to $4.38. For dinner, I made nachos of sorts. The ground meat was $5.93, and I cooked up an onion and then added some seasonings, about 90 cents worth of cheese, and I topped it all off with a cola LaCroix for a total of $10.41 for both me and my wife. Then Rachel made me some oatmeal raisin cookies from her sourdough starter. We already had all the ingredients, but we used about $4.08 to make the batter. So my total for Wednesday was $18.87. At this point, you can probably guess what I had for breakfast and lunch and my afternoon drink. And for dinner, I made a bake with onion, apples, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and chicken for $13.18. This brings my total for Thursday to $17.59. Friday was a continuation of my Groundhog Day routine. I was running low on cold brew concentrate, so I had a bottle of cold brew that I bought for $2.70. For dinner, I made the same meat sauce that I made on Sunday, and honestly, since it's almost like chili, I just skipped the noodles and just ate it as is. The meal was $12.02. My total spent on Friday was $21.71. So Saturday, I actually mixed it up for breakfast. No, I didn't. I ate the same freaking thing every day. And lunch was about the same. $3.10 there. And for dinner, I made a taco salad. It ended up being $10.47 with 2 avocados worth of guacamole. So my current computer chair is kind of falling apart, so I decided to go ahead and buy my dream chair, which is a Herman Miller Aeron chair. But I did find it for about half off, so it was $659.09. And the business paid for it. So my total for Saturday was $675.57. Mostly chair-related costs there.
It's one of these. I really want it.
Okay, so now let's talk about monthly expenses. By far, our biggest expense is rent. We've been living in LA for 5 years now, and rents have gone up a lot since we've been here. We've moved several times since we've been here, and this is by far the biggest apartment we've lived in, with loft space for 2 filming sets and plenty of room to shoot. We used to have 2 studio spaces, but we were able to cut one and just film here. So rent here is $4,355. We also have to pay $165 per month to park in our parking garage. But the business pays for the parking spot and the car lease itself, which is $360 per month. Since we do have a lot of dedicated space for our business, about 1/3 of the rent is paid by our business, and then we pay the $2,900 left over. This works out to $725 per week from our personal account, and then $363.75 per week from the business account. I have gotten a few comments from people who wanted to see a house/studio tour. So if you want to see what $4,500 rents you in LA per month, leave me a comment below and let me know. Unfortunately, this place is not very cost efficient to keep cool in the summer, especially now we've been going through a heat wave. So with our old windows and high ceilings, water and power are about $340 per month. We also get water delivered since I think LA tap water is kind of gross. This is $37 a month. We still have our photography studio a few miles away, and the rent there is $1,875 per month. Okay, now I'll quickly cover some other monthly expenses. Internet is $65 a month. Health insurance, $378.72 a month. Cheddar Flow, which is for trading stock options, is $85 a month. YouTube TV for $65 a month. Patreon for $25 a month. Dog food for $100 a month. Spotify for $15 a month. So all in all, I spent $3,507.77 this week, if you include my monthly expenses broken down on a weekly basis. $1,216.59 was personal expenses, with about $900 of that going towards rent, utilities, and health insurance. I think tracking your spending for a week, a month, whatever, is a great way to see where exactly your money is going and get a better control over your finances. Plus, when you are in the habit of tracking your expenses, it can make you a little bit more reluctant to spend money, which in turn helps you save. That's it for this video. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.